Let's see. Mm. There we go. Yay! There's a will, there is a way, honey. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna do my quick little intro again, and then we'll get started. All right,
Okay.
everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Skoden Talks with the Homies with your host, Auntie Sage. IP3 is an organization that provides nonviolent direction, action training, campaign strategy, and community organizing tools to support Indigenous communities taking action in defense of their homelands. For more information about IP3 or to send community training requests, you can visit our website at ip3action.org or contact info at ip3action.org. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Pride edition once again. And in honor of Pride, we have a Two Spirit leader that is uh, just one of the greatest, in my opinion. Just good people to talk to, good medicine, has great stories. And today I'm hoping we can hear some of those great stories about your trials and tribulations, the good, the bad, the ugly, just being a two spirit person in this lovely thing we call life. So without further ado, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you
Okay.
perfect.
Yes. Well, my name is Beverly Little Thunder. I am from the Standing Rock Reserve up in North Dakota. My grandmother was Bessie Two Bears, and my great great grandmother was Nellie. Um, Someone said one bull, and someone just said bull. So I don't know which. My father was an orphan, so we didn't know anything about who he was. My grandfather came from Cheyenne River, so all I've ever known all my life has been Lakota tradition, because I was raised that way. My mother uh, raised me in California, but used to send me back to my grandmother's when I was little. Until I was about 10, I spent every summer in Kennel, which at the time was just a very little teeny tiny town far away from anything. And so that's who I am and where I come from. I currently live in Vermont. My wife of 27 years, Pam, who's also my technical assistant, um, is from DC. And so moving to rural Vermont was quite a um, change for her, but she has adapted quite well. We've been here 20 years, so um,
Mm.
it's a beautiful place. I'm looking out over the Green Mountains right now from the window of our upstairs room, and looking down at my garden and seeing everything that's growing, and being quite pleased that I got it in before I had to travel at the beginning of this month. So we
And
have 7 cats, 5 dogs, and a house pig.
oh, and a house pig.
Mhm.
How cute. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And I must say, Beverly is a very well-traveled lady, so she takes uh, a lot of trips, and I'm so glad we got to sit with you. Beverly just recently got back from the White House. They got to honor a lot of our Two-Spirit Indigenous people there at the White House for a Pride celebration. So it was so beautiful to see all of our people there, to see so many young ones as well as our elders there, and just to see just how wide a variety of our indigenous people spread out across all of this world. It was just so beautiful. I don't know if you want to touch on that any about your trip to the White House, but
Well, it was very exciting, and I was very honored to be invited. As I said to Pam when I got the invite, is this for real? Or somebody paying a joke on me? Um, then I called Lenny Hayes, and he said, "Girl, you go." I said, "Okay." So I actually met up with Lenny and kind of grabbed him by the hand, and we went there together. It was a wonderful coming together. There were only 75 people invited to this
wow.
convening, And there was a panel of 5 people that talked about, what was going on in their community. And there was a woman who was there from Hawaii, and she said something that has echoed in my mind ever since I left. And she said, our pressing issue is not Two Spirit people being accepted. Our pressing issue is our people surviving, because without our people, there'll be no Two Spirit people. And she talked about how Two Spirit people were pretty much commonplace in Hawaii, and that, there was not a lot of discrimination from the Hawaiian people
Yes.
towards Spirit people. But it was really interesting to hear everyone speak. Of course, Lenny spoke about, violence against men and boys, which very few people speak about. And we had someone from Seattle who talked about missing and murdered Indigenous women. And we had a young man named Nathan who was 17 and has been working in the Two Spirit community for the last 2 years. And I had met him last year at the Two Spirit gathering that the East Coast had. And as he spoke, I was so proud. I felt like a proud grandmother watching him speak, and I thought my heart was going to burst out of my chest.
Oh,
To see, these young people, I always tell younger people, you are the ones I've prayed for. You are
yeah,
the ones I've spent my life praying for. And you're doing the work that I wasn't able to do or didn't see need to be done 40 years ago when I came out.
yeah,
So, that for me was a highlight of, being at the White House. Um, I heard someone say, the White House is not a place where Native people have always been welcomed. And as I sat in that room, walked those halls, I thought that's not true. Our people have been welcomed into the White House. They've been wined, they've been dined, they've been given trinkets, and they've been given a pin to touch a paper, and took away our land and our rights and put our people on reservations, which are just a fancy word for prison camp.
yep,
And so it was like a mixed, I was proud to be there, but I was also devastated and angry. And I could not help but think, okay, what is their gain by doing this?
mm,
What is the agenda, the unspoken agenda? So
yes,
that was my experience. I'm sure other people, had totally different experiences, but, from where I sit at 76, that was what was going through my head.
yeah,
And I really enjoyed going. They had a reception at the Gaming Association's office, which was very, very lovely. Um, and they had 2 bars set up. And I couldn't help but think most of the people that I knew that were there were in recovery. Um, but there were those that I watched make repeated trips to the bar.
hmm,
And I just hoped that they were getting seltzer water and juice, because that's what
yeah,
I was drinking.
yeah,
But there were also a lot of politicians that were there,
yeah,
and several of them spoke, and so it was was showcasing us,
Oh yeah.
and you try to look for the bright side of it, but in your heart, what this is. So
And what it could be or could have been if y'all would have let us do our work. But
exactly, exactly, and the presentations that were made to largely a room full of people that already knew.
yeah,
There was nothing new that was told to us other than, you know, the the thought that I got from the Hawaiian sister.
yeah,
Um, I would like to have seen Biden and his cabinet hear that.
yeah, yeah.
Those are the people that need to hear how we are feeling and what our needs are.
Let's
So I did
go to
not stay for the day after. They had a event on the White House lawn, and I just was not up to walking around the grounds and listening
yeah,
to our politicians spew their agendas.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, like I was telling somebody, I was like, I know there's always next year, and maybe we can get our voices heard to them. Be like, can we do more than this? Like this was cute,
Mhm.
but
Right, exactly.
there's
And
more
that
we
was the
can
other
do.
thing that I walked out with thinking, okay, Creator, you presented this opportunity and opened this door. What am I going to have to do?
Yes. Yeah.
And, my work has just begun.
Oh yeah. Like we're here. Now what do we do with this?
Yeah.
Um, so also it's always echoed um, time and time again from our elders that we need younger leaders, and it's so good to start seeing that. It's been even just in my little time in the communities that was very echoed, and we are finally getting to see these young ones step up and like take these big roles, and it's so amazing. But for us, I would love to hear your story on, what was it like for you to come out as a young person and finally step into these roles to being a leader? Like, what did it take for you to be like, okay, I need to step up, I need to do something, I need to be a leader for my people?
Well, it was very different when I was trying to come out. First of all, the word lesbian was totally foreign to me. And I didn't know any other Native person or Indigenous person who was um, Two Spirit. I use Two Spirit as a contemporary term. But I was terrified that if I acknowledged that I was attracted to girls or women, I would be ostracized. And as I got older and began, going to ceremony, um, it was at a time when Dennis Banks was sort of exiled in California and did a Sundance there as instructed by the elders. And so I went there to support that. Now that's about 100 miles from San Francisco. So we
Mm.
had a lot of people come from San Francisco.
Yeah.
And amongst those people that came were men and women who were identified as gay or lesbian. And I remember one young man had come for a couple of years and stepped up and pledged to dance. And the leadership welcomed him and um, were very open and accepting until he got in his car and drove away. And then they started, well, is he going to sleep in the teepee next to you? I don't want him sleeping there, you know. Are we going to have to use the same bathroom as him? And, well, is he going to wear a dress or is he going to wear, a skirt to dance in? I mean, just very derogatory statements. And I just sat there and listened. And then they had an international treaty conference there. And I had by then met some gay Indians in San Francisco. And unfortunately, it was a time when their board meetings started with people walking in with their six packs of beer. And I tried to ignore it. And I said, you should come to the treaty conference and set up a table with information. And we were just on the brink of heading into the AIDS era. So a group of women came. One was an elder woman, and set up their tables. And security went and dumped everything on the table in a trash can and physically escorted them, almost dragging them off the grounds. And one of the regrets in my life is that I didn't say anything. I just watched. And I thought, if they knew that I was one of them, I wouldn't be allowed to come sweat. I wouldn't be allowed to carry the pipe that I carry. I wouldn't be allowed to sundance. I wouldn't be allowed to, be a part of the community. And I was terrified of that because I knew nothing else. And I sort of hung around the white lesbian community and did things sort of on the sly, away from home. And then I fell in love. I prayed, actually. I prayed for someone to come into my life who was probably at least half Lakota, who understood the tradition, who liked children, because I had 5 children. I tried really hard to be straight. It didn't work. And I met someone who fit. And she fell in love with me too. And I still see her as someone that I love dearly, even though it turned out that I wasn't specific enough in my prayer. It was not a good relationship for me. I was accustomed to being abused because I was abused as a child. I was abused by the men I married. And so when she began abusing me, I kept telling myself, it's me. It's something I'm doing. I finally found the courage to leave that relationship. And it was not easy, because this was after we had gone back to South Dakota to dance. And we were turned away and told that women like us were taken in the desert and shot. This was 1987. I'd been having a dream about a Sundance that looked nothing like Sundances I'd participated in. And my Honka brother at the time said, well, you should go and have a ceremony for your own kind. So I did. And, that was not without its trials and tribulations, because, it drew New Age lesbians. It drew Native women from all over that also had been rejected and really knew nothing about ceremony. So I did that for a number of years. I didn't believe in owning land. So we traveled. Arizona, southern Arizona. God, it was hot. And to Northern California. And that was like 13 miles off the main road, down a logging road that was not maintained. We had to go 13 miles to get water. And finally, we wound up in Vermont. A group of women who have a collective here said, well, why don't you come and use our land? They're white women. And I was like, had a lot of trepidation, but I really had no choice. So I agreed. And during the time that we were coming from, we drove every year from Minneapolis to Vermont. Pam found out that the land surrounding the collective was for sale.
Mm.
And they said, oh, the owner will never sell. People have gone to her and she won't sell it. Well, Pam, I think she could probably sell ice cubes to Eskimos in the middle of winter, convince them they needed them. So she brokered a deal with this woman that was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was, going price for an acre of land at that time was $4,000. We paid $1,000, and we only have 17,000 to finish paying it off. And so, yeah. So the arbor that I saw in my dream that was growing got planted, and the tree that when I'm home, they go and cut a cottonwood and they carry it to the Sundance grounds. We planted trees. We planted trees. We wanted to give back, and it was more about healing and giving back to the earth and to our people than suffering. I've been in lodges where they burn you out and they say the more you suffer, the stronger your prayers are. Well, over the years, I've done a lot of studying and looking, and Christianity is it is a violent institution.
Yeah.
And I want nothing to do with that. So we're going on our 38th year now, having Sundance here. So
Yay.
yeah, my daughter is kind of taking over because she was like 9 years old when I was turned away, and she remembers.
Yeah.
She's also Two Spirit, so that's
And
makes it
she's
better.
amazing. She's got an amazing teacher.
Yeah, she is. So
A few years back, um, I had a friend that's an ally, and they work very close with the Methodist Church. And so the Methodist Church had their international gathering here in Oklahoma, and they had 250 delegates from all over the world come here with their interpreters and everything. And so the Native American Methodist Church here in Oklahoma, one of the pastors was like, I need help. We're going to present to the church, to the world council, what they have done to our Native people. We're going to do 2 skits, and we have a part for a Two Spirit person. It's like, and we would love for you to come be a part of it because you're trans. And he's like, and we know the history, how the church has treated the Two Spirit and the trans community. He's like, so we want you to come represent. It's like, okay, cool. So I show up, and as we're walking into this beautiful church, I'm not a religious person. I believe in my traditional ways. So I'm walking in, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And there's like, by the way, there's like, there's a very progressive lesbian church from Nebraska that was here yesterday. And when they were here talking, they got escorted out just because the people that were conservative asked them to leave, and they got arrested, and they were kicked out. And I was like, oh my gosh. And there's like, while we're presenting, if you get thrown in jail, we have bail money for you. I'm like, what? and so, and then there's like, so the 2 head guys of the Methodist Church And it was a white guy and an African American guy. They sat in the front, so they pointed them out, and they were right in front of me when I got on stage. They were like, "Those two are the ones that kind of say what's up, down, goes around here." They was like, "So they like those are the ones to watch out for." I was like, "Okay." So, and in this skit, I'm reading, and it tells us how we were burned at the stake, how we were tortured, how we were made to do horrible things just because we were not welcomed in the church. And so, as I'm reading this, I'm sitting there like shaking with my piece of paper, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, "What are they going to say?" And then the other one kind of mirrored what I had to say, but just to say that to them. It opened their eyes. And we were asked to serve the wine and bread. And so instead of serving them traditional wine and bread, we served them grape dumplings. And so that was actually pretty cool. And then and like I try to like take off because I was scared because I was like, I do not want to be thrown in jail. I look cute today. Like this is not a day for that. And so I like try to take off and he's like, no, Sage, we want you to come help serve, like right center. There's like everybody's talking about you. And as I got to read that last scripture, that lesbian congregation got to come back in and they were all cheering and stuff for me. And I'm like, shh. And so we go to start serving the grape dumplings. And on their worldly paper, the uh, the African American leader comes up and he shakes my hand. He's like, "Thank you for your testimony." He's like, "It'll be my honor." He's like, "Can I help you serve?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, sure." So he stands next to me, and the white guy comes up, and he's like, "It would be my honor to be your first that you serve." He's like, "I know this is not your type of anything." He's like, "But he's, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for your testimony."
Oh,
So
nice.
to be in that moment and see that uh, change, it is so crazy. And just here recently, I think in the last month or two, they have taken the verbiage of sexuality out of the Methodist Church.
Oh,
Like they are now recognizing gay marriage.
wow.
So it is so crazy. And that's just hearing your story. That's what I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, we are witnessing this change and I'm
Nice.
so I'm hoping me serving grape dumplings to them was a part of that. Like
It probably was, in 2016 during DAPL. Um, I was with a group of Two Spirit people, and we created a camp right in the middle of Cheteksakowe. And we were welcomed by many of the elders. And I cried the whole time because I never dreamt I would see that. I swore I would never go back to South Dakota or North Dakota until all my Two Spirit brothers and sisters were welcome. And so I was like, I'm seeing the beginning of that.
yeah.
And a couple of years later, I got an invitation to come to Standing Rock and be on a panel to address the high school about trans issues and bullying. And
Mhm.
then a talking circle at night about um, Two Spirit children. And we had several parents come, sets of parents, and tell us how they supported their trans children. And it was quite emotional for me because here I was at a place I'd been, kicked out of. But add the icing to the cake. The woman one of the women who helped organize it, uh, I heard her name and I asked her if she knew, John. And she said, "Oh, yeah, that's my father." And I was like, "Oh," because last time I saw John, I was in my early 20s. And as far as he knew, I was straight. And so I thought, "Oh, dear, does he know that I'm here?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, he's coming tonight." And I said, "Oh, okay." So during the talking circle, of course, I had to share my story. And he sat there, didn't say anything, He's aged. I didn't recognize him. I'm sure he didn't recognize me. But he stood up and he was holding eagle feather, and he said, "These words are from my dear friend Beverly." He said, "You will never be turned away from this reservation ever again or any ceremony here. This is your home. You belong here. All of you belongs here." I was a puddle. You know, if I'd worn makeup, it would have been down my face. But, and since that time, I have gone back to Standing Rock probably at least 3 times a year. I've gotten
Yeah.
very involved in some of the things that are going on there. And so it came full circle. But, in 1985, I would not have dreamt. To me, it was the end of the world. And I tell
Mm.
young people, what seems so hard right now, you do not know the future. None of us have the ability to see the future, but Creator knows. And so what you're doing right now, what you're going through, is opening a door for someone else.
Yeah.
And I really am very passionate about talking with young people and raising them up. I don't believe in the words right or wrong, good or bad. Those are words that, they can make or break someone. And I don't want to do that. I want to see all of our people raised up, and I want to recognize them for the gifts that they carry, because that was our traditional way. And I think that, we're stepping back into our traditional roles without even realizing it.
Yeah.
How many people do I know that are raising children that don't have parents? How many people do I know that are caring for elderly people in their communities?
Yeah.
Who are acting as mediators, we're in our roles. It's just in a different environment now.
Very. And
Yeah.
I think about that now because, like, I never saw myself to be in any kind of roles because I always thought I was too young. And then I was like, I was already doing it. Just being a trans Shawnee woman in my circles and going through what I've gone through. And I will say, my coming out, I never had to come out as trans, or I never had to come out as gay, but coming out as trans was a whole another situation, but I felt safe enough to do it. And then just being the first in my community already made me a leader just
Mhm.
by doing that. Because, man, that opened the door for so many kids around here. And then it was a joke there for a minute, everybody calling me auntie, and then it wasn't a joke because they were like, no, you really are auntie. Like, you take us in and you are showing us what it is to be fearless and unconditional love. And that made me cry because that was something I always wanted, and I did not know I was already doing it for someone else. Because
Mhm.
I was like, I have tried for that so much in my life to have unconditional love. And I guess just me being me, I guess I was doing it for the kids that I mentor now. And it's been beautiful. And those words you saying too for us stepping into those roles. It's so powerful, and just to watch these babies grow and to be themselves. Like, we have some very tough kids,
Oh, we do.
so
We do.
it's so beautiful. And we have you to thank too, because that's we needed those. We needed those strong roots so we can grow. So I want to say thank you
Oh,
because you
salamat.
you've made it just that more easier for me to be here and to exist and to feel comfortable and just be my authentic self. And I can only hope to do half of the stuff that you've accomplished.
Ah,
Um, but I would like to say or ask, I know you had wrote a book, One Beat at a
mhm,
Time.
mhm.
Um, how did that come about? How did those thoughts and feelings and
Well,
that want to write a book, how did that come about?
I really never gave much thought to writing, but
Mm.
woman from Canada came to our ceremony who was an author who had authored several books in Canada. And she said, Beverly, your story needs to be told. And I said, oh, I don't, I don't have a story to tell. She says, oh, yes, you do. And so she bugged me for 5 years. And finally I said, okay. She said, look, we'll record it. I'll transcribe it and then send it to you and you can, correct it. So for the next 5 years, that's what we did. We recorded over 20 hours of conversation. And when she finished, she had something like 400 and some odd pages. And of course, we had to cut that down. A lot of it went on the floor. But she found a publisher in Canada who took it and published it. And, it's sort of a bittersweet accomplishment because a few months before the book was actually launched, Sharon found out that she had a rare form of liver cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And we had set a certain date to launch the book. And the publisher's father had died a few weeks before. And she said, I just, can we postpone this until fall? And I said, sure. So I called Sharon and told her, and her response was, oh, then I guess I'll never get to see it in print. And I hung up the phone and I just sat there and I thought, she's going to die. So I called Luciana right away and I told her, and she says, we're getting this book out by May 25th. We're going to get it out one way or the other. So that's what we did. So Sharon was able to come and she was able to see it and be a part of that. And then that fall, she died. Yeah. But, the thing that the book has done is I'm about halfway through writing another book. And it focuses more on the experiences that I had in maintaining my spirituality
Mm.
and the things that, led up to ceremonies, the good, the bad, and the ugly of,
Yeah.
Of taking the risk of doing that. Because I used to get phone calls every year. I never knew how they found my phone number. But every year, some man would call me and tell me,
Yeah.
my uncle, he says that you're doing it all wrong. It should be done this way. Somebody else, you're doing it the wrong time of the year. Because, my auntie said this, and I would listen. And when they finished chastising me, because that's what it felt like they were doing, I would politely say, I am really honored that you took the time to share what your teachings were.
Yeah.
I've been led on a different path.
Mm.
So thank you. And I'd hang up. Maybe about 4 years ago, those calls stopped. But
And if there's any advice for those that are struggling with their traditions to keep going, is there anything that you could tell our viewers what that looks like for you?
well, I just recently went through a Shnate ceremony, which is like a coming of age at 75, because it was pointed out to me that when I was a teenager, those ceremonies were forbidden. The
Mm.
Freedom of Religion Act didn't happen until 1973. And so, they told me this is the one ceremony that you need to go through because you're given your altar. And so I finally got permission to do all the things I've been doing for the last 75 years. But it takes sometimes being silent and observing. I've learned more from observing than being a part of the conversation. And if the conversation is going in a direction that truly annoys me, I try to find a gentle way of talking about it. I try really hard to always use I statements and talk about my feelings. And I think that has benefited me the most in my lifetime. And I I would urge young people to listen. We don't know how to listen. I didn't know how to listen. And, sometimes I didn't tell people that I was Two Spirit until they asked, "Are you married?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, my wife and I've been married for so many years." And then they're like, "Your wife?" I said, "Yeah." I had my grandson who's being raised in a very strict Christian family say to me, "How can she be your wife? You're both women." And I said, "Two women can love each other and be married." And he said, "They can?" I said, "Yeah." A few minutes later, he says, "Are you Christian?" I said, "Well, not really." I says, "But I believe that, there's a force greater than me." And I said, "I don't have to go to church." I said, "We're standing in my church. We were at the park." And he looked around and he said, "Oh, maybe that's why I like bugs so much." I mean, the innocence of a child. The
Yeah.
innocence of a child.
Yeah.
Yes. I try to be very matter of fact about everything and try not to take it personal and get, angry about anything. So
Yes. And that is such a hard lesson to do, but those little ones will humble you so quickly. I
they
get nervous
will.
around them, but it's always like, okay, let me breathe, because oh my gosh, because it in the early part of my transition, they would clock you so quickly and it has such hateful stuff. But now that I'm just so comfortable in myself, it's not, "Are you a man?" or "Why do you talk this way?" or "Your voice is a little different." Now it's like, "Oh, where'd you get your clothes?" "Oh, you look pretty today." And I'm just like, "Oh, like I can live comfortable. I live comfortable. I live fearless now." And I feel like it's that fear. When you fear them, they can feel it and they will tear it out of you. And so now I'm way comfortable around the kids, and it's kind of like I can be with them. And I also got to think about them too, how they used to think. It's like, it's so it's so simple for them,
Right.
and we overthink so much stuff as we
We
get older
do.
because we're told stuff and we've been made fun of and we get called names, and then so we expect that from everyone. But these kids, they don't know any of that until they hear it, and so they just want to know, why are you wearing this dress?
I was
I don't know. It's
I was once at someone's home and they had three children. The children were watching TV and we were sitting in the dining room and they didn't know that I was Two Spirit. And so they asked, "So Beverly, you ever think you'll get married again?" I said, "No, because I am married." "Oh, what's your husband do?" I said, "My husband is a woman and she works in IT." It was deathly quiet. Of course, all the kids turned around and looked. And the husband said, "Oh, well, that's good, but you what do two women do? You know,
yeah,
in the bedroom?"
yeah,
And I smiled and I kind of leaned in and I said, "I'll tell you what. You tell me in great detail what you and your wife do when you're behind closed doors having sex." I said sex, and of course the kids were like, and he was like, I said, "And then I'll tell you in great detail what my wife and I do."
yeah.
And he says, well, that's kind of personal. I said,
Yeah.
it is? I said, how about the question you just asked me? Oh, oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess. It's none of my business. I guess as long as you love each other, it's okay. And the kids were watching all of this.
Yeah.
And I know that they talked about it later.
Uh,
So,
yeah.
it's they're listening. Those little kids are listening. They're
They
processing.
are, and they are
So,
watching our responses, and they are
uh-huh.
little sponges that just picks up everything.
Yeah. And we don't have to be their parent or their relative. Every every adult that a child encounters is a teacher to that child. Every adult. And that was a revelation to me when I realized that.
Yeah.
So,
And I had one today. So luckily, when I went to go jog earlier, I came across Indian perfume,
oh,
and I went and I picked it. So we use that for like wash
uh-huh.
medicine and stuff here. Like,
Yeah.
and so because I was really going, and then I smelt it, and I was like, oh my gosh! And I just saw it, and I saw the purple flower, so I was like, oh my gosh! So I went and picked some, and I didn't have anything to offer. I didn't have no tobacco on me or
Mm-hmm.
nothing like that. But in the Cherokee traditions, I have learned if you're picking medicine or if you pick your guard or anything, you're supposed to honor Mother Earth
Mm-hmm.
and give something back. And if you don't have anything to give, you give your spit. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, oh yeah. So I spit and I messaged my Cherokee sister. I was like, you better be glad of your Shawnee sister. I was like, I adopted your ways. I was like, I spit. She just laughed. She goes, good ways, good ways. But as I was sitting there thinking of that, or picking that medicine and walking with it, I was sitting there, and to me, like, as soon as I picked it, I felt good. It smelled good, and just good thoughts of when I used to pick it with my grandma and stuff. And I was sitting there, and then I had like a weird revelation come over me, and it just came out of nowhere. And it was like, so we do get asked, how do we maintain um, if we're still partying and still trying to be traditional, and those conversations have came up, and to me I had that revelation. I was like, you know what, I was like, I was taught that, and I was like, and I was not, it was not just something that came out of the blue. I was like, but I can't unteach that. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, so I was like, if that question ever comes up again, that's where that's going to come from, because and it's not an excuse, but I'm just kind of like, I was like, I didn't really know how to answer that for the longest time. But as a two spirit person, we get pulled into, I always say we get pulled into three worlds. We have the white world, we have the Indian world, and then we also have our two spirit gay world that we have to live in, and trying to navigate what those three worlds are and to find your place in them. It's stressful, and especially for our two spirit people, it's just it gets a little chaotic for some, and it takes us to be some strong people. So if you do see your two spirit folks or relatives, uplift them, make
Mm-hmm.
them feel welcome, because they have walked three different paths in this
Right.
world just to fit here and just to be in our own.
Right.
So yeah, I was feeling that today with that medicine, and I was like, thank you. I was like, I needed this, because it was like just so many thoughts came over, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I
But
know that feeling when you go to get medicine. Once I found a porcupine on the side of the road and I used the quills for my beadwork. And I went to gather quills and I had no tobacco, I had nothing to leave, but I had some ginger snaps and lemon drops in the car. So I left a stack of 4 ginger snaps and 4 lemon drops. And someone came driving behind me and they said, we were following you and there were suddenly stack of cookies and lemon drops on the side of the road next to this dead porcupine. And I said, that was my offering. And they looked at me like I'd lost my mind.
hey, the
But
spirits have to eat
they
too.
do too. They definitely do. But one of the things that we are so fortunate. is that with technology, as technologically challenged as I am, is we have a way to reach each other. We have a way to see our faces and to talk with each other. And we are not alone anymore. You know, that lone Native woman who didn't know anybody else who was Native and queer now has a whole family. I have so many adopted daughters and granddaughters that I can't keep track of all of them. And I love every one of them. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's in 1980 was the first gathering. There were about 50 people there. Now, all across the country, there are gatherings happening,
Yeah.
drawing, you know, a couple hundred people. And the international gathering, which is going to be happening in Oklahoma this year. I'm so excited. I am so excited. So,
And it is such a blessing. And I we are, so Oklahoma is hosting the International Two Spirit Gathering. So if you have any Two Spirit relatives, send them my way if they would be interested in coming to be a part of it. We are really focusing on our traditional aspect of our gathering this year. I am the co-chair for the All Nations Two Spirit Society that is hosting it. So definitely reach out to us or our Facebook or Instagram page for more details. And it is just for our Two Spirit folks. Allies can come apply to volunteer to be a part of it, but it is main focus just for our Two Spirit
mhm.
people. Um, but before we get to go, I always like to ask a few just off the wall questions so we don't leave on a bad note or any kind of note. But um, I always ask my guests, is there a traditional dish that is one of your favorites or that you like to cook?
Wojape.
Oh, yeah,
Wojape.
yeah, yes.
I have a sweet tooth, and Wojape fills that sweet
Ah,
tooth. That on a
yes.
piece of fresh fry bread, oh, that's
We might have to fix that for the gathering
yes.
then. They're like, this is for Beverly, just for Beverly. Because I heard Buffalo Barbie is making fry bread, so we'll have her
Okay. Oh,
those.
well, then we'll have to make Wojape.
Uh, well, it was so great to have you, especially for our Pride edition. Um, I just want to also tell everyone it was echoed yesterday a lot from a lot of the attendees from the White House that it was said um, pride is for those that need pride, that think that they're not worth it, and they feel like they can't carry on. So this is for them. This is for them to encourage them,
Mhm.
to give them strength, and go on because once after Pride is on, it is a long year for a lot of folks. They go back to these little small towns, and it's
Right.
hard. We have lost a lot of our own Indigenous Two Spirit folks just because they do feel alone, or they don't feel loved, or they feel kicked out of their communities and not a part of it. So be sure to be always be mindful of your relatives. Check in on them.
Yeah.
They might be putting on a happy face, but you never know. They could be going through something. So definitely always check in on your relatives. And also be watching out for Beverly's new book coming out. So, if there's any way or anything that we can help you or uplift, is there anything we can donate that any organizations that you like to help out or plug at this time?
Well, we are a 501c3, Kunsikea, and it's KUNSIKEYA, Vermont, .org.
Okay.
And you can find out all about a women's, it's not even a women, we call it a women's Sundance, but it's not the women's Sundance. We're trying to find a word to replace that because we
Yeah.
don't pierce, and it's open to all Two Spirit people,
Yeah.
regardless of gender or identification.
Okay.
And you can find all that information on our website.
Okay. Awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it so much, Miss Beverly. I will be seeing you soon, and I hope
Yes.
you have a great the rest of the Pride Month.
Ah,
I'm
and you
gonna be,
too.
oh, of course, I'm gonna be dancing it down somewhere.
Oh, you look beautiful today. I just wanted to tell you
Well,
that.
well, thank you. That's why when we did the test run, I was in the dark because I was like, I don't want them to see it. But it's always good to hear your stories and your smile and just to hear your peaceful, calm voice. And
Oh,
thank you, Pam, for getting us set up. I saw Pam came in here a little bit too. So,
oh, she did.
yeah, she got to watch a little bit of us. But as always, catch us again for another episode of Skoden Talks once a month. Next month, who knows? It'll be my pride, not my pride, my birthday edition. So Auntie turns a year older, so we'll have a birthday one. I don't know. We'll see who we get on next month. But as always, it's so great for y'all to be here, and we will catch y'all again on another episode of Skoden Talks with the Homies. See y'all next time.
Bye.